1, 2, 3, 4.
Reporting as many as 6 explosions and a big plume of smoke, a big fireball in 1966.
Months later, trap line, now an open pit mine for oil in the sand.
More than 200 concerned citizens and public officials packed a Mobile-based Citizens Call Town Hall public hearing about a plan to pump thick, hot Canadian tar sands crude oil through a new pipeline running right under Mobile's fresh drinking water reservoir. Listen to what some of those people had to say about the plan.
I don't know about you guys, but when I first attended the meeting here and listened to David Underhill talk about what was going to happen here, or what was planned to happen here, to the Mobile River, to Big Creek Lake, the potential of what should happen, I was absolutely dumbfounded and mad. It's been going on a year and a half, and how come the public did not know? And we've got to get organized in a manner that we can be effective. Because our drinking water supply is something that's very, very personal to all of us. I mean, air quality, water quality, we're all for that. But when it comes down to our drinking water, it becomes very, very personal.
First, let me say I applaud the Sierra Club for being out front, for bringing attention to this, for having this meeting tonight. And I'm so happy to see so many people here that are concerned. And Tom is absolutely right. Our drinking water supply is absolutely critical to this community, for the health, safety, welfare, and the future of Mobile County and our whole region. We cannot afford to have a threat such as this posed to our drinking water supply. Obviously, you don't have something of this magnitude come into your community and have one public hearing in Montgomery that nobody knows about. I'm in hopes that we can convince these representatives that we need a realignment on this out of the Big Creek Lake watershed. That's number one. They're being here tonight and you're showing your concern. They're paying attention to that.
You said the tar sands is already here, but the pipeline hasn't been built yet to part through the watershed. Is that right? Is it already under construction?
They are making preparations to move through the watershed, but the company itself has issued a stop work order because there are concerns with some of the pipe quality, and I think that the pipe that has already been put in, they're having to take that up right now.
So first, let me thank you for sharing all the information. You have a lot more information than we have, and we certainly appreciate that, and we really want to share some information with you. We talked to our departments today. We have not got any requests for any permit applications for anything. So a lot of what you're telling us are things that we are learning for the first time. But we do know our ordinances do require land disturbance permits, require a lot of different things if you're going to come to the city of Mobile. We have not seen them at all. But you can rest assured that we will go to whatever extent is necessary to protect the watershed.
You want to hear some scuttlebutt?
Yeah.
My name is Larry Godfrey. I live in Wilbur. This project is not in my backyard, but it's close enough to be in my backyard. I'm real concerned about it, of course. And I talked to the superintendent that was brought in to the job 2.5 weeks ago. The pipe is made in Korea. The pipe was set on the barge for over a year in a salt air content, and somehow or another it has a chemical composition of, when they cut the pipe with the torch to fit the pipe, they have magnetic problems when they cut the pipe. Because of the product that they're welding and trying to put together and run on this pipeline, they're going to pull the pipe out of the ground. It's a 375, a 3/8 of an inch wall thickness on the pipe. They're going to put 1/2 inch pipe back in the ground and go from there. Supposedly they discussed going around the watershed Lake area. Hopefully that's going to happen. I see a lot of old gray-headed people in here, including myself, and that tells me you're from the 60s. How many ever demonstrated? There you go. Most of you is retired now and you can afford to go to jail. Walk down that pipeline right away and get in front of the machines that's creating this havoc and problem here, and we're going to stop this project. We're going to let Mayor Jones and my Commissioner Connie Hudson stop this project. If that don't work, we'll stop it. We'll do this because we've got some people here that can do this. I've never seen this amount of people in the Sierra Club meeting in my life.
If the Water Board and the County Commissioners succeed in realigning the pipeline, I assume that will mean that legally they have to have a hearing for the new route. And when the time comes to have a hearing for the new route, it should not be in Montgomery. It ought to be in the communities affected. I suggest someplace in Pritchard. Second, we've given so much attention to the pipeline going through the watershed that we haven't paid as much attention to the project downtown on the rail yard. And the trains will become like tanker cars, maybe up to 120 cars long through Pritchard every day to get to the waterfront. And then under the river to the tank farms that already, before the planned expansions, hold tens of millions of gallons of petroleum products. It's now going to be mostly Canadian tar sands oil in amounts that far exceed the size of the Exxon Valdez oil spill that wrecked Prince William Sound in Alaska, and 25 years later is not cleared up yet. Just a couple feet above sea level on the waterfront in Mobile at the head of the bay. Imagine a hurricane storm surge 25 to 30 feet high, which is what happened with Katrina, coming up the bay and up the river to these tank farms. Does the project lie within the 100-year floodplain? Because we keep burning so much of this fossil fuel and dumping it in the atmosphere, disrupting the climate so much, the 100-year events tend to happen every 5 or 10 years, not every 100. And the answer is yes. It's within the 100-year floodplain on the waterfront in downtown Mobile. And that project and the expansion of the tank farms to accommodate it is being promoted by the Industrial Development Board of the City of Mobile that has granted several $1 million in tax breaks to promote that project on the waterfront downtown.
David, you answered part of my question that I had before. The volume, you said 125 rail cars per day.
Maximum we've seen is 120 per day.
Okay. Have we yet looked at the question of how does the volume by rail compare to the volume by the XL pipeline if it was actually finished out?
It's not quite as much, but it's comparable. And if you add all the rail, there's several other rail outlets contemplated, a few of them already underway, that are equal to the Exxon, the pipeline. Yes. And to the extent that the pipeline, the XL pipeline is slowed or stopped, the pressure to bring larger volumes here by train increases. And to the extent that the pipeline here through the watershed is stopped or moved, that increases the degree it will encroach on private property in order to find another route, which will increase the condemnations necessary for that to happen and the exercise of eminent domain by a private company against private landholders on behalf of the state. All of that is in the offing. If this proceeds, that's why what Teresa said is what we have to concentrate on to stop the whole mess. For those who don't know, what we call tar sands oil coming from strip mines in northern Canada is different, thicker, and worse than ordinary crude oil, which is bad enough if it gets loose from the pipes. But this tar sand, when it comes out of the ground, it's almost asphalt, and it has to be diluted with other substances which are themselves even more dangerous than the crude oil in order to make it fluid enough to put it into tanker cars. And then once it gets here, the plan is to put a flame under each tanker car on the waterfront downtown, a big natural gas flame to heat these tanker cars up to about 180 degrees to make it more fluid, to get it through the pipe under the river. So they're going to pump boiling oil almost through the pipeline under the river into these storage tanks holding more than the Exxon Valdez.
Our drinking water is very important. We already have issues in 8 Mile and Pritchard already. We already have environmental issues. One of the gentlemen at the last meeting spoke about the emissions that will come from this refinery. The air that we breathe, hearing about the shifting of the pipeline. I don't want a damn pipeline. I have children, I have my family. I'm tired of this. The Gulf Coast is becoming the dumping ground for every topic.
Canada does not want their own product. Put off to Texas, said no, don't bring it here. But Mobile wants it here. Why? Well, in the military, we used to call it a fade. In the civilian life, you call it a bone. A bone is a big feet lake. So all the tension out there, but the real prize is right here. Right here. 1 mile from downtown Mobile, the business district, 1 mile from the mayor's office, 1 mile from the county commission office, 1 mile from the View Park Plaza, and 1 mile from Africatown. We grew up in Africatown with the 2 paper mills, International Paper and Scott Paper. For 50 years, we're still burying most of our people between the age of 40 and 50 right now. We don't want this hazardous stuff around Mobile. We want it to stop.
My name is Ramsey Spray. I came here from Texas. I've been part of the tar sands blockade, Keystone XL blockade in Texas. I didn't know the situation was as bad as it was. I'm really happy to hear that there are people already talking about doing what's going to be necessary to take care of the problem. Because we can talk to our elected officials, and they're leading the best, and they mean well, but there's limitations on what they're actually able to do. Good for you for having good folks in the government standing up for you, because we didn't have too many in Texas. We didn't have many at all. So this is a big sea shift. This is a big sea change. And for this to be happening in Mobile means a lot to me. I'm here to help. We want to stand up for Pritchard. We want to stand up for Africatown. We want to stand up for 8 Mile. We want to stand up for these long-term communities that are suffering from what we understand and know as environmental racism. If we don't name it as that, it will keep happening. It's not just about Mobile and the drinking water. It's about these mine sites that are happening in Canada. We answer the call in Texas. I understand very intimately what it means to be able to systematically lose your traditional way of life. And for that to be happening in real time, as I'm alive, I can't let it happen. These people, the Cree communities, the Chippewa communities, are saying they are suffering a slow industrial genocide because of this tar sands oil, which shouldn't be called oil at all. There's no cleanup protocol whatsoever through the EPA. I've talked to the EPA oil spill coordinators. They don't have a clue what to do. And the fact that there's so many people here is a powerful statement to these companies. Tar sands is too much. It's extreme energy. And for what it's worth, we're going to shut them down.
It's time. It's time in Mobile, Alabama, that we set our culture and our heritage to heavy industry aside and stand up and say, yes, 3 or 4 jobs, putting all of us at risk is not worth it.